to sort of demystify the process of motion capture, and because it's something I've never really done before.
Notice how annoyingly touchy Pedro Pascal was with his co-star. This is part of the growing complaint about Pedro's creepy nature on set. A former makeup artist from the Fantastic Four movie is allegedly calling him a weird creep, and is ready to reveal all that went down on the set with Pedro Pascal. The revelation that shocked the MCU. For months, whispers have circulated through Hollywood's tight-knit crew networks. Makeup artists, stylists, and assistants sharing stories in private group chats, warning each other about certain actors, certain sets, certain situations to avoid. But Pedro Pascal? His name wasn't supposed to be on those lists. He was the internet's daddy, the progressive hero, the guy who cried at award shows and advocated for marginalized communities. That disconnect between public persona and private behavior is exactly what makes this story so unsettling. Because when someone builds their entire brand on being one of the good guys, the fall from grace hits that much harder. And here's the kicker. This isn't just one isolated incident. According to multiple sources connected to the production, Pedro's behavior wasn't just awkward. It was habitually inappropriate, manipulative, and downright unsettling. But first, let's rewind a bit. Pedro Pascal, once hailed as the internet's favorite zaddy, has been everywhere lately. From The Last of Us, to The Mandalorian, to now taking center stage in Marvel's rebooted Fantastic Four, the man has been labeled the new face of modern masculinity by Men's Health, and even praised by MSNBC for his ethic of care, MSNBC source. But behind that progressive poster boy image, cracks are beginning to show. Pascal's rise to megastardom has been meteoric. Just 5 years ago, he was a character actor known primarily for getting his head crushed like a watermelon on Game of Thrones. Today, he's commanding 8-figure salaries and headlining multiple billion-dollar franchises simultaneously. That kind of rapid ascent often comes with a dangerous side effect: the belief that normal rules don't apply anymore. Industry veterans have seen this pattern before. The charming actor who becomes untouchable. The beloved star whose behavior gradually shifts from quirky to concerning to outright problematic. What makes Pascal's case particularly troubling is how effectively his team has managed to keep these stories contained, until now. The transformation from Pedro the struggling actor to Pedro the untouchable superstar didn't happen overnight, and neither did the alleged behavior that multiple crew members are now describing. According to sources, the warning signs were there from his early days on The Mandalorian set, but Disney's investment in his image was already too substantial to risk addressing them properly. In interviews, Pascal often presents himself as this lovable, humble, slightly awkward guy who just happened to stumble into fame. Like here, where he shrugs off praise and jokes about being stuck in a bodysuit.
I had to do a lot of things just to not offend anybody in a light blue bodysuit. Light blue doesn't hide a lot.
Sounds innocent enough, but what happens when the cameras stop rolling? According to an anonymous source we'll call Marcy, who worked as a senior makeup artist on the Fantastic Four set, Pedro was a nightmare, not because of diva demands or creative disagreements, but because of the way he treated women in confined, vulnerable spaces. In her words, which were leaked via a private industry DM and later confirmed through a second crew member, Pedro would get unusually close, like really close, uncomfortably close, but it didn't stop there. And this is where things start getting serious. Even more alarming is how she claims the production team initially responded. When concerns were first raised, the response was dismissive. That's the kind of toxic passivity we've seen over and over in Hollywood. The smiling face on the red carpet, hiding a pattern of dismissive, boundary-crossing behavior that gets excused by charisma and box office returns. And let's be clear, this isn't the first time Pedro's behavior has raised eyebrows. Remember the clip where he gets asked about spoilers and completely shuts down the interviewer, only to make an off-color remark seconds later?
No, I've decided we can't.
He plays it off like he's protecting the studio, but people close to production say he was notorious for giving mixed signals and making comments that blurred the line between performance and power play. Charming, right? But according to Marcy and her colleagues, that same self-effacing Pedro is exactly what made it so hard to speak out. People didn't believe them. And then there's this, a story that started as a joke and quickly turned into something a little more alarming. During a press junket, Pascal admitted to developing an eye infection. Sounds harmless, right? But listen to what he actually says.
And they'd be like, can I put my thumbs in your eyes? Because I got my eyes crushed in, their thumbs in. And then I stopped after a redness appeared.
Fans were literally sticking their fingers near his face, and he let them. He encouraged it, until his body finally pushed back. The creepy part? He thought it was hilarious. This pattern of blurring personal boundaries has followed Pedro for years, but it's been dismissed as eccentricity, flirtiness, or the cost of charisma, until now. This isn't unique to Pascal. It's a playbook we've seen before in Hollywood. Hollywood, the male star who publicly champions women while privately making them uncomfortable. There's a third layer here, one that Pedro Pascal's fans are quick to ignore, but one we can't. It's the hypocrisy. Because while Pedro has built his brand on being the soft king of Hollywood, standing for equality, advocating for trans rights, bashing Trump, and telling fans to make art, not war, there's an undeniable pattern of behavior that contradicts this carefully crafted image. Like this Vanity Fair shoot, where he struck a series of bizarre poses that many called artistic, but critics, and more than a few viewers, felt uncomfortable, not because of the imagery alone, but because it echoed something performative, something strategic. As one YouTuber famously put it in her video that went viral earlier this year, there's just something about Pedro Pascal that makes me feel like he's always in character. Like the goofy feminist dad thing, that's a mask, and behind it, there's this guy who just gets away with too much. And she's not alone. Even fans on TikTok began to circulate the phrase Pedro Pascal fatigue, a growing sense that the man once viewed as authentic is now overexposed, overhyped, and possibly overprotected. And here's why you should care. Because if Hollywood is willing to protect one of its newest, most profitable faces, even in the face of troubling accounts, what else are they willing to bury? Make no mistake, this isn't just about one actor behaving badly. This is about a system that rewards profit over accountability. A system that gives leading men like Pascal carte blanche to cross lines, as long as they keep bringing in box office numbers. Remember how Warner Brothers handled the Ezra Miller situation? Repeated arrests, disturbing allegations, even felony charges. Yet The Flash still hit theaters with Ezra as the face of the entire campaign. What the cameras didn't show. According to Marcy, the senior makeup artist we introduced earlier, the behavior wasn't just inappropriate, it was calculated. She describes it as subtle but persistent, like he thought his charm gave him a free pass. In one disturbing moment, Marcy alleges that Pascal came into the trailer before a shoot and, after complimenting her hair, leaned in too far, breathing down her ear while making a joke about how his character could stretch anywhere. She says, "I laughed nervously and stepped away," and he still followed it up by saying he wished real life had that power. Now, on its own, maybe you could chalk that up to bad humor, a failed joke, but this wasn't a one-off. In a separate incident, she claims he refused to let another artist apply powder to his face, insisting she do it. He was smirking like it was a game, and he said, "Only you can touch me like that." Let that sink in. But the most serious allegation centers around what we're calling the 72-hour trailer ban, something that multiple insiders now confirm quietly occurred during Fantastic Four's final week of principal photography. According to an email from the production office, obtained and verified by Dumois' Industry Leaks channel, Pedro Pascal was restricted from the primary makeup trailer for 3 full shooting days. The reason? Disruptive behavior that made crew uncomfortable? That's the official line. But a second source close to the hair and makeup department says it was far more serious. The incident, reportedly caught on an internal hallway security cam, involved Pascal following a young assistant, we'll call her Lexi, into the makeup storage area after hours. The tape allegedly shows him lingering inside for over 4 minutes before exiting, with her walking out a full minute later, visibly shaken. What makes this incident particularly troubling is the timeline. According to production schedules we've reviewed, this occurred on a Friday evening when most of the crew had already wrapped for the week. Pascal had no scheduled work in that area, no legitimate reason to be in the storage room, and certainly no reason to follow a junior crew member into a confined space. Multiple sources describe Lexi as noticeably different in the days following this incident. Colleagues noticed she became withdrawn, started requesting different assignments, and eventually asked to be transferred to another department entirely. When questioned about the change, supervisors reportedly cited scheduling conflicts, but crew members knew something had happened. The security footage allegedly shows Pascal checking the hallway before entering the storage area, suggesting premeditation rather than a casual encounter. He's also reported to have looked directly at the camera upon exiting, indicating awareness that his actions might have been recorded. Now, we're being cautious with how we describe this. There is no video publicly released yet, and no formal charges filed. But the fact that studio security flagged this moment, restricted his access to the trailer, and rerouted his makeup to be done on set for several days, that alone says everything. The 3-day ban meant Pascal had to receive his makeup and costume adjustments in a more public setting, with multiple witnesses present at all times. Production assistants were assigned to accompany him during any movement around the makeup areas. These aren't standard protocols. They're protective measures typically reserved for actors with documented behavioral issues. Because in Hollywood, a machine notorious for enabling powerful men, when the cameras stop rolling, the real scenes begin. When she voiced concerns to her supervisor, she says she was told, "It's just Pedro being Pedro." Another higher-up allegedly said, "He's method. He's always like this. Don't take it personal." According to a report quietly leaked to film blog The Illuminati, the studio scrambled to keep Pascal's behavior under wraps, allegedly citing mental fatigue from press and performance demands as justification for his actions. A source inside the PR team said Marvel considered it a character bleed, not harassment. That phrase again, character bleed. As if playing a man who can stretch physically somehow entitles you to stretch boundaries with real people. There's a third layer here involving his relationship with co-star Vanessa Kirby. Now this part is delicate, because no one from her camp has made public comments. But people on set noticed the shift in chemistry between Pascal and Kirby midway through the shoot. Early press events show her standing close, laughing, warm, but toward the end, she won't even make eye contact. In the last big group panel appearance before the film's release, pay attention to this moment.
This is a family that only knows how to save humanity by being a family.
She's nodding, but she's also frozen, glancing sideways, pulling her hands into her lap. In other clips, she physically steps back when Pascal leans in, something fans even picked up on in a viral TikTok titled, "Vanessa is done." Behind closed doors, Kirby reportedly asked to have her interview segments edited separately from Pascal's during the final press tour. A producer at Access Hollywood noted the scheduling seemed deliberately staggered, and if you compare clips, she and Pedro never appear seated together after that final panel. The breakdown of their working relationship became evident in subtle ways that only industry insiders would notice. Kirby began arriving to set later in the day, specifically after Pascal's scenes were completed. She requested her own dedicated makeup trailer rather than sharing the communal space. During group scenes, she positioned herself strategically to minimize direct interaction. Most telling was her body language during the few remaining joint interviews. While Pascal maintained his usual animated, tactile approach, reaching out to touch co-stars' arms, leaning in close during conversations, using physical proximity to establish dominance, Kirby became increasingly guarded. She would cross her arms, angle her body away, and create physical barriers with scripts or water bottles. According to leaked text messages sent by a junior assistant producer, someone on Kirby's team raised concerns about Pedro's behavior during overnight shoots, specifically during reshoots in Vancouver, where he allegedly refused to stay in separate green rooms, even when requested. The Vancouver incident is particularly significant because it occurred after the initial complaints had already been filed. This suggests that either Pascal was unaware of the seriousness of the situation, or he simply didn't care. Multiple sources describe him as becoming increasingly defiant when asked to modify his behavior, treating requests for professional boundaries as personal attacks on his character. One crew member described Pascal's reaction to being asked to use a separate green room as explosive. He allegedly accused the production team of treating him like a predator and demanded to know who had complained about his behavior. This reaction reportedly made several people even more uncomfortable, as it seemed to confirm that he was aware his conduct was problematic. The very next day after the security camera incident, Marvel PR pulled all one-on-one press interviews that featured female journalists alone with Pedro. No explanation, no scheduling conflict, just a sudden shift from solo interviews to group panels. And if you dig closely enough through Entertainment Tonight's red carpet feed, you'll notice they start cutting around Pascal's moments with women. We're not saying that's proof, we're saying that's a pattern. Let's take a moment and revisit that moment everyone glossed over. The infamous red carpet joke Pascal made when asked about his physical prep for the role.
I had to do a lot of things just to not offend anybody in a light blue bodysuit. Light blue doesn't hide a lot.
It was played off as self-deprecating, but sources say he would repeat that joke, or some version of it, to female crew members at least once a day. And more than once, he reportedly added, "Want to see how I stretched for real?" One stylist said she began scheduling her breaks around Pascal's fittings to avoid interactions. Another refused to go into the trailer without a second person present. Meanwhile, Marvel executives were reportedly having emergency PR meetings. According to a confidential report first teased by The Ankler, internal emails revealed concern that Pascal's growing eccentricities were becoming a reputational risk. Their solution? You guessed it. Lean into the zaddy. According to one source close to the Disney publicity team, Marvel doubled down on Pedro's goofy dad persona as a smokescreen. Overnight, interview scripts were rewritten. Photographers were instructed to emphasize his casual softness. Behind-the-scenes clips were edited to showcase Pascal's hugging, laughing, and harmless one-liners. One insider put it bluntly, they turned the volume up on the PR so no one would hear what was really going on backstage. But no one, not one person, wanted to go on the record. Why? Because in their words, you go against Pedro and you go against Disney, and that's career suicide. The aftermath, the silence, and the deal. By now, you've seen the specific incidents. You've heard about the trailer ban, the security footage, and Marvel's scramble to contain the situation. But what happens when the last line is delivered, the trailer emptied, and the cameras go dark? Hollywood starts moving deals behind closed doors, and that's where things get truly chilling. When studio offered Marcy, the senior makeup artist, a private settlement in exchange for an NDA, we're talking a low six-figure amount. She turned it down. She didn't want hush money. She wanted the story out. But she's not the only crew member who's finally ready to speak. Her name is Janelle R., a veteran stylist with 14 years of industry experience, including previous work on Black Panther and Captain Marvel. And she's no anonymous tipster. She's gone on the record in a private industry interview that's set to be released next week, and we've seen a preview. In it, she says, "I had a panic response every time I was assigned to him. He'd lean in, whisper things, joke about how stretchy he could be. At first, I thought it was his way of warming up, but it kept going, even when I made it clear I was uncomfortable." She continues, "When I told my department head, I was warned not to misinterpret Pedro's warmth. They said he was eccentric, but let me be clear, it didn't feel eccentric. It felt like testing boundaries." Let's be very clear here. Janelle is not accusing Pedro Pascal of assault. She's accusing him of persistent, inappropriate behavior. The kind of behavior that thrives in gray areas, especially when the man doing it is protected by fame. Just days before production wrapped on Fantastic Four: First Steps, a second makeup artist, referred to in internal emails as D, reportedly requested to be moved off Pedro's trailer. This was after she claimed he made her feel cornered, intensely stared at, and once grabbed her wrist to show her a supposed scratch on his chest from the costume's underwire. Marvel prides itself on maintaining a squeaky clean image, especially since the Guardians of the Galaxy James Gunn controversy and the endless PR cleanups surrounding Jonathan Majors. But despite two crew members making separate discomfort-related complaints involving Pascal, not one official HR intervention has been confirmed. So where does this leave the people who tried to speak up? After one of the makeup artists filed an informal complaint, not to HR but to her union, she was mysteriously left off the call sheet for the final press junket. Her name was scrubbed from the premiere's invite list. No farewell, no wrap gift, nothing. In fact, in a crew group chat that leaked to Crazy Days and Nights, another crew member joked, "Guess it doesn't pay to call out a star. Hope she enjoyed her last MCU gig." Janelle R., according to her agency, has not booked a job in 4 months. The makeup artist known as Marcy has reportedly left the industry altogether, returning to private salon work. And the assistant Lexi, her LinkedIn now lists freelance work, with no current credits after Fantastic Four. The pattern of retaliation against crew members who speak up is well documented in Hollywood, but it's usually more subtle than outright blacklisting. Instead, these workers find themselves mysteriously unavailable for projects they've previously been considered for. Their agents stop returning calls as quickly. Their names get quietly removed from preferred crew lists. Meanwhile, Pedro Pascal is getting a promotion. In late June, just weeks after Fantastic Four: First Steps wrapped, multiple outlets began whispering the same thing. Pedro Pascal was being courted by Warner Brothers, not just for any role, for a franchise anchor, a character described internally as multi-dimensional, dark, and definitive. Collider first broke the story. Pascal was being tapped for a new DC property with spin-off potential. That alone was shocking, but what happened next was downright baffling. Marvel said nothing, despite internal friction, conflicting press coverage, and a pile of reports internally documenting uncomfortable incidents on set. Marvel Studios released an official statement praising Pedro Pascal's dedication, presence, and leadership. They didn't just cover it up, they doubled down. You'd think Warner Brothers would pause on bringing in a name already facing multiple allegations of misconduct, but instead, WB made it clear they were eager to lock Pascal in, with one internal source telling Variety he brings energy, charm, and global appeal. That's the kind of power we need right now. That same source also claimed that WB had done their own vetting and found no reason for concern. Warner Bros.' eagerness to sign Pascal also reveals their calculation that his star power outweighs any potential risks. They're betting that audiences won't care about behind-the-scenes allegations as long as Pascal continues delivering box office results. It's a cynical but probably accurate assessment of how the entertainment industry operates. The deal also serves Pascal's interests perfectly. By quickly moving to a new studio and a new franchise, he can distance himself from the Fantastic Four allegations and reset his narrative. Any future stories about his behavior can be dismissed as old news from a previous project, rather than ongoing concerns that follow him between studios. No reason for concern? So why is this important? Because this is how systemic abuse hides, not behind violence, but behind charm, power, and plausible deniability. Behind 1,000 smiling photos and 1,000 gushing headlines. And yet, no trades are covering it, no Variety, no Hollywood Reporter, no Deadline. Why? Because Pascal is now officially signed to a new WB project as confirmed here, and that means one thing: he's protected. From GQ to Esquire, he's praised as a refreshing take on masculinity, a soft-spoken heartthrob, but none of those publications have addressed these crew allegations, even when multiple outlets were tipped off through private sources. The media's complicity in maintaining Pascal's image is particularly troubling because it demonstrates how thoroughly the entertainment industry can control narratives when it chooses to. These aren't small publications with limited resources. They're major outlets with investigative capabilities and industry sources. Their silence suggests either willful ignorance or active participation in the cover-up. Why the silence? Because Pedro Pascal is bankable. His image has been curated, managed, and sold as carefully as the Marvel Cinematic Universe itself. He isn't just a man, he's a brand, and brands must be protected at all costs. The transformation of actors into brands represents one of the most significant changes in modern Hollywood. When a performer becomes a brand, their personal behavior becomes secondary to their commercial value. Problems are managed rather than addressed, incidents are contained rather than investigated, and victims are silenced rather than supported. Pascal's brand specifically relies on his image as a progressive, feminist-adjacent figure who represents a new kind of masculinity. This makes allegations of inappropriate behavior toward women particularly threatening because they undermine the foundation of his entire public persona. The stakes for protecting this image couldn't be higher. The irony? The entire Fantastic Four campaign was built on the concept of family, togetherness, and emotional authenticity. In one particularly tear-jerking interview, Pascal says,
"The story is completely about family, and that as a family, and only as a family, can we save humankind."
Heartwarming, but also jarring when viewed alongside the claims being made. Let's not forget how this same cycle played out with Ezra Miller. The warnings, the arrest, the silence, the studio standing firm, all while quietly preparing their replacement plans. But Pedro Pascal? He's getting a promotion. A man who joked about getting an eye infection from fans poking his face.
I'd be like, "Can I put my thumb on her eyes?"
A man who, by multiple accounts, made women in trailers feel deeply uncomfortable, is now headlining. Another billion-dollar bet. And the worst part? Nobody in power has asked him a single question about it. Not once has Pascal been directly asked about his trailer ban, about the crew complaints, about the makeup team's documented concerns. Instead, he's been given a bigger spotlight, more power, and the privilege of silence. This story isn't just about a man behaving badly. It's about the layers of systemic protection that allowed it to continue. That let Pascal become Marvel's latest star while allegedly ignoring direct complaints from women just trying to do their jobs. It's about the way PR manipulates the narrative, turning red flags into charming quirks, turning silence into complicity, turning harm into heroism. Marvel claims to stand for family, for values, for integrity. But when faced with evidence of boundary-crossing behavior from one of its biggest stars, they chose to do what Hollywood always does. They chose to protect the star. For some fans, the Pedro Pascal era is just beginning. For others, for those who've seen the patterns, the contradictions, the way Hollywood gaslights through grins, the mask is slipping. Because in the end, it was never about one creepy joke, or one weird comment, or one uncomfortable moment in a trailer. It's about what happens when a billion-dollar studio values a man's image more than a woman's safety. And if Marvel, Disney, and Warner Brothers continue to pretend nothing happened, then they're not just complicit, they're partners. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.
Yeah.
It's almost terrifying to think about these being done.
Chris Evans has just opened up about something going on at Disney, and honestly, it's got people worried. For a while now, there have been whispers about drama unfolding behind the scenes, things never meant for the public eye. But hearing it from one of the studio's biggest stars, that hits different. So what exactly is going on? Chris Evans drops a bombshell about Disney. The world of Disney has been no stranger to controversies, particularly when it comes to the 2022 Pixar film Lightyear. At the center of this storm stands Chris Evans, who voiced the titular character in what was meant to be the origin story of the beloved Space Ranger. The film was positioned as the movie that inspired the toy in the Toy Story universe, an interesting meta concept that added layers to the Pixar mythology. However, when Lightyear hit theaters in June 2022, it sparked immediate and intense backlash, primarily due to the inclusion of a brief same-sex kiss between two female characters. This scene, lasting only about 10 seconds and appearing in a montage sequence depicting the life of Hawthorne, voiced by Uzo Aduba, and her wife, caused the film to be banned in 14 countries, including the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and other nations in the Middle East and Asia, where homosexuality is often criminalized or heavily restricted under local media content standards and cultural norms. The international censorship of Lightyear highlighted the ongoing challenges of global film distribution, particularly for content that pushes boundaries on social issues or includes LGBTQ+ representation. Producer Galen Sussman told AFP that the team was warned of potential bans but chose not to alter the film, stating, "We weren't going to change the film we wanted to make just because of some countries with, for lack of a better term, backward beliefs." This stance reflected a growing willingness among some filmmakers and studios to prioritize inclusive storytelling over maximizing global box office potential, a complex business decision with significant cultural implications. Evans made headlines headlines when he boldly addressed this controversy head-on. In an interview with Reuters that quickly went viral, he didn't mince words about those criticizing the film's LGBTQ+ representation, stating, "The real truth is those people are idiots." The actor's unfiltered response was remarkable for its directness, especially coming from the star of a Disney-Pixar family film. Most actors promoting such projects tend to respond to controversies with carefully worded diplomatic statements, but Evans chose a more confrontational approach that aligned with his personal values, while potentially risking alienating certain audience segments. The actor went on to elaborate on his position regarding social progress, framing the issue as part of a broader historical pattern of societal advancement.
I mean, I think throughout history, you can see every time there's been social advancement as we wake up. I mean, the American story, the human story is one of constant social awakening and growth, and that's what makes us good.
This framing situated the Lightyear controversy within a larger narrative of American and human progress, suggesting that resistance to diverse representation is not only wrong-headed, but part of a historical pattern that ultimately gives way to greater inclusivity. Evans's choice to contextualize the film's representation in these sweeping historical terms elevated the discussion beyond a single scene in an animated movie, connecting it to fundamental questions about social evolution and progress. What's particularly interesting about Evans's stance is how firmly he planted his flag in support of inclusion, even as Disney was navigating its own internal controversies regarding LGBTQ+ content. Before the film's release, the same-sex kiss scene was initially cut from Lightyear, but was later restored following protests from Pixar staff. This internal conflict at Disney Pixar was part of a broader protest against Disney's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill, officially the Parental Rights in Education bill, which restricts discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in primary school classrooms. In March 2022, LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar sent a joint statement to Disney leadership, claiming that Disney executives had censored overtly gay affection in films, highlighting years of thwarted efforts to include LGBTQ+ identity in their projects. The statement detailed specific examples, including the removal of a rainbow sticker from Soul 2020 and same-sex couples from various backgrounds in films, illustrating the tension between creative desires for representation and corporate concerns about market reception. Evans continued his criticism of those opposing the film's representation, predicting their eventual irrelevance in increasingly stark terms.
And, when that happens, there's always going to be people who are afraid and unaware and trying to hold on to what was before. But those people die off like dinosaurs. And so, I think the goal is to pay them no mind, march forward, and embrace the growth that makes us human.
The dinosaurs metaphor was particularly pointed, comparing critics of inclusive representation to extinct creatures unable to adapt to a changing world. This vivid language underscored Evans's conviction that opposition to diversity and representation represents not just a difference of opinion, but a fundamentally outdated worldview destined for extinction. Such rhetoric, while galvanizing for those who share his perspective, undoubtedly intensified the polarized reaction to both the film and Evans' comments. The actor's co-star in the interview echoed these sentiments with their own powerful statement, urging critics to re-examine their perspectives through the lens of the film's famous catchphrase.
I would say to those people, just like with Buzz, refurbish your idea of tradition. Understand that it's to infinity and beyond. It's time to move forward. It's time to accept and look and enjoy all the faces that have always been there. You know what I mean? They always been a part of the picture. You just try to paint them out. So that's also what this is about. It's about this is what it looks like. This is what it's always been, and to infinity and beyond.
This creative incorporation of Buzz Lightyear's signature phrase, "to infinity and beyond," transformed it from a space exploration metaphor into a call for social progress, cleverly linking the film's theme of pushing boundaries with the real-world push for greater inclusivity and representation. The controversy surrounding Lightyear didn't end with its representation issues. There was also significant discussion about the casting of Chris Evans instead of Tim Allen, who had voiced Buzz Lightyear in all 4 Toy Story films. This decision led to fan disappointment and speculation about whether Allen had been passed over for political reasons, given his conservative views and public support for Donald Trump. Some fans and media outlets theorized that Allen's absence was due to his political stance, noting incidents like a 2013 controversy involving racial slurs, adding another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Evans addressed this casting controversy directly, explaining in interviews interviews that Lightyear depicted the human character who inspired the toy, not the toy itself, which justified the different voice casting. In an interview with Jimmy Kimmel, he further clarified the premise of the film, describing his initial confusion and the explanation he received from director Angus MacLane.
So, listen, I'm a massive Pixar fan, and when my team first called me to tell me that this was a possibility, when you get a call...
Which team, the Celtics, you mean?
Sorry, God, that was like the most Hollywood thing. When my team called, my agents,
yeah.
And when everybody's on the call, you know it's either good news or really bad news.
Right.
Evans went on to explain the concept behind the film, revealing how the director's childhood fascination with Star Wars informed the creative vision for Lightyear.
And I went up and I met with them, and Angus, the director, had a PowerPoint presentation, and it began by him saying, so when I was a kid, I loved Star Wars, and click, the first slide was, 5-year-old Angus covered in Han Solo gear, and he said it was just his whole world. He had all the toys, and his friends loved it. And he said that when he first saw the first Toy Story, and when Andy got Buzz Lightyear and all his friends knew who Buzz was, he wondered what was the movie in their world that they saw that made Buzz such an iconic...
This explanation positioned Lightyear as a meta-narrative within the Pixar universe, the fictional movie that existed within the world of Toy Story that inspired the Buzz Lightyear toy line. This creative concept sought to justify both the visual differences between the animated human Buzz and the toy Buzz, as well as the voice casting change from Allen to Evans. Tim Allen himself weighed in on the controversy in an interview with Extra, commenting on the lack of connection between Lightyear and his portrayal of the character. "It's a wonderful story, it just doesn't seem to have any connection to the toy. It's a little, I don't know, it just has no relationship to Buzz. It's just no connection. I wish there was a better connection." Allen's remarks, while not directly critical, suggested a disappointment with how the character had been reimagined, adding fuel to the existing controversy about his absence from the project. Despite the explanations offered by Evans and the creative team, the casting controversy added another layer of political tension to the film's reception. Some conservative commentators and fans saw Allen's absence as part of a pattern of Hollywood sidelining performers with right-leaning views, while others accepted the creative explanation at face value. This division reflected the increasingly polarized nature of media reception in contemporary American culture, where casting decisions and creative choices are often interpreted through political lenses. Despite the controversies, or perhaps partly because of them, Lightyear underperformed significantly at the box office. Reports indicate that the film lost Disney a substantial $106 million, with a production cost of $373 million, including marketing and distribution, and global box office earnings of only $26.4 million. This financial disappointment led to further criticism and analysis, with some attributing the failure to the film's perceived woke agenda, and others pointing to factors like the confusing premise, the absence of Tim Allen, or simply the quality of the film itself. Conservative backlash against the film was significant and vocal. Representative Jim Jordan expressed his views on Twitter with the succinct critique, "Buzz Lightyear went woke, the movie went broke," encapsulating the go woke, go broke sentiment that has become a common refrain among critics of progressive content in entertainment. Right-wing podcast host Ben Shapiro elaborated on this position on social media, claiming that Disney has a not at all secret gay agenda and encouraging parents to consider this before taking their children to see Lightyear. He included a screenshot of the lesbian couple from the film to emphasize his point, drawing attention specifically to the representation that Evans had defended as a natural part of human progress. The backlash extended beyond social media commentary to concrete actions. A school in Ontario, Canada, canceled a planned field trip to see the film, and a theater in Oklahoma announced its intention to fast-forward through the kiss scene during screenings. These responses demonstrated how the brief scene had become a flashpoint for broader cultural tensions about representation in children's media and parental control over the content their children consume. The controversy around Lightyear continues to be a point of discussion even in 2025, with recent social media posts still referencing it alongside other Disney projects as examples of woke flops. In April 2025, user at BigPoppage68 commented on X, "But at Disney is bleeding money from woke flops like Buzz Lightyear and the Snow White remake. We should quit pretending it's not a problem." This suggests that the film's legacy and the discussions it sparked about representation in media continue to resonate in cultural conversations years after its release, becoming part of a larger narrative narrative about Disney's creative direction and its commercial consequences. Not all reactions to the controversy were negative, however. Some commentators mockingly criticized the intensity of the backlash, drawing parallels to other cultural flashpoints. In April 2025, user at Sammy Wrestlin noted on X, "They literally couldn't sleep at night because a mermaid was black. They stormed a capitol. They never admitted defeat. They also almost killed everyone in their way when there was 2 women kissing in the Lightyear movie. Their snowflakery knows no bounds." This satirical take characterized the backlash as disproportionate and politically motivated, connecting it to other instances of conservative outrage over diverse casting and representation. At this point, it's clear that Evans's stance placed him squarely on one side of a cultural debate that extends far beyond a single animated film. His willingness to call critics idiots and predict their extinction like dinosaurs demonstrated a level of conviction that set him apart from the more measured corporate responses typical of Disney-affiliated talent. Whether this bold stance has affected his relationship with the entertainment giant remains to be seen, but it certainly cemented his reputation as an advocate for progressive values in an increasingly polarized media landscape. Disney scandals rock the entertainment world. While Chris Evans' comments about Lightyear critics generated significant buzz, they represent just one facet of Disney's recent controversies. The entertainment giant has been navigating a sea of scandals that extend far beyond the casting and content choices of a single Pixar film. One of the most alarming recent incidents occurred in early 2025, when former Disney employee Michael Schur was sentenced to 3 years in prison for hacking into the park's menu system after being fired in 2024. This wasn't just digital vandalism, it was a potentially dangerous breach with real-world safety implications. Between July and September 2024, Schur repeatedly hacked into Disney's menu creation software, making various malicious alterations including changing allergen information, falsely indicating that some items containing peanuts were peanut-free. This could have had life-threatening consequences for visitors with severe allergies had Disney not caught and removed the altered menus before they reached park restaurants. The extent of Schur's digital sabotage was comprehensive. In addition to the allergen misinformation, he changed menu prices, added profane language, disabled employee accounts, and altered QR codes to link to a website advocating a boycott of Israel-related businesses. The incident disrupted operations for 2 weeks, requiring manual processes and backups, and cost Disney at least $150,000 in immediate damages. Schur initially denied wrongdoing, claiming Disney was framing him and citing a mental health disability, but he eventually pleaded guilty to computer fraud and aggravated identity theft. In April 2025, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution of approximately $690,000. This incident highlights significant cybersecurity vulnerabilities at one of the world's most visited theme park destinations, raising questions about Disney's digital infrastructure and employee management practices. The case also illustrates the growing intersection of cybersecurity and physical safety in our increasingly digital world. Another ongoing controversy plaguing Disney parks involves the exploitation of the Disability Access Service, DAS, designed to assist guests with disabilities who cannot wait in traditional lines. Reports from May 2025 indicate that some guests are hiring disabled individuals to accompany them and use DAS passes to skip lines, a practice costing approximately $100 for priority access. The practice involves able-bodied guests effectively renting the services of someone with a disability solely to gain preferential treatment in attraction queues. This exploitation not only undermines the purpose of the DAS system, but also commodifies disability in a troubling way. This is not the first time Disney has grappled with such abuse. Similar practices were documented in the early 2010s, leading Disney to replace the guest assistance card with the more structured DAS in 2013. In response to continued exploitation, Disney updated the DAS program again in 2024, narrowing eligibility to focus primarily on developmental disabilities like autism, requiring virtual interviews up to 30 days in advance, and limiting group sizes. However, these policy changes have themselves become controversial. A class action lawsuit filed in February 2025 alleges that the new policies discriminate against guests with physical disabilities, violating their rights under the Americans with Disabilities Act and California's Unruh Civil Rights Act. The lawsuit seeks changes to eligibility criteria and damages of at least $4,000 per violation, arguing that the current implementation forces public disclosure of medical information, constituting a privacy breach. Public public reaction to the exploitation of the DAS system has been strongly negative. On forums like mumsnet.com, commenters called the hiring practice deceitful and profoundly depressing, with one person noting, "As someone with a disability who now has to jump through ridiculous hoops in Florida, people like your husband are the reason getting the pass I've legitimately used for years is now near impossible." Disney has defended its policies, stating that the claims in the lawsuit are without merit. The company adjusted the wording of its DAS eligibility descriptions in January 2025, removing the word "only" from certain criteria, possibly in response to legal pressures. Beyond operational issues at the parks, Disney has also faced broader controversies related to cultural and political debates. The company's response to Florida's Don't Say Gay bill in 2022 exemplifies this challenge. Disney's initial silence on the legislation led to staff walkouts and public criticism. LGBTQ employees and allies at Pixar alleged that Disney executives had actively censored overtly gay affection in their films. When Disney eventually opposed the bill after significant pressure, promising $5 million to LGBTQ+ charities and halting political donations in Florida, it faced backlash from conservative stakeholders and politicians. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis responded by targeting Disney's special self-governing status in the Reedy Creek Improvement District, escalating what had been a cultural disagreement into a legal and legislative battle. The controversies surrounding Lightyear are part of a longer history at Pixar and Disney regarding LGBTQ+ representation. Over Pixar's 27-year history, few films have included unambiguous LGBTQ+ characters, with examples like a one-eyed cop mentioning a girlfriend in Onward 2020, and two moms hugging a child in Toy Story 4 Inches 2019. This pattern suggests an ongoing tension between creative desires for inclusive storytelling and business concerns about market reception. The conservative backlash against Disney's perceived woke agenda extends beyond Lightyear. Recent social media comments continue to frame Disney's creative choices in political terms. For instance, the casting decisions for the live-action Snow White remake sparked heated debates in March 2025, illustrating how Disney properties have become battlegrounds in broader cultural wars about representation. In March 2025, another incident added to Disney's challenges when a fire broke out in a walk-in cooler backstage at Epcot's France Pavilion, leading to the evacuation of Remy's Ratatouille adventure. Just days later, a Florida man was arrested for attempting to bring cocaine into Magic Kingdom, generating headlines that associated Disney World with illegal drug activity. As Disney navigates these multifaceted scandals, it faces the challenge of maintaining its identity as a family-friendly entertainment provider while addressing the increasingly diverse and sometimes conflicting expectations of its global audience. The controversies reveal a company at the intersection of changing social norms, technological vulnerabilities, and polarized political environments. Future plans leave fans wondering what next. As controversies continue to swirl around Disney, fans and industry insiders alike are curious about Chris Evans' future with the entertainment giant. Having portrayed both Captain America in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Buzz Lightyear in Pixar's Lightyear, Evans has been a significant presence in two major Disney franchises. However, his path forward with the company appears less certain than his past success might suggest. Speculation about Evans returning to the MCU as Captain America has been persistent since his character's emotional send-off in Avengers Endgame 2019. However, recent statements from the actor have consistently denied these rumors. In a January 2025 interview with People magazine, Evans firmly shut down reports of his return for Avengers Doomsday, stating simply, "That's not true," and noting that similar rumors resurface every few years since Endgame. This sentiment was echoed in an Esquire interview where he quipped, "Yeah, no, happily retired," when asked about reprising his role. Anthony Mackie, who has taken up the mantle of Captain America, confirmed in the same piece that Evans had not discussed returning, adding, "I talked to Chris a few weeks ago and it wasn't on the table then." These recent denials stand in contrast to earlier rumors from outlets like Collider in January 2021, which had suggested negotiations for at least one Marvel project, but these have not materialized into confirmed roles. The persistence of these rumors, despite clear denials, highlights the challenge actors face in controlling the narrative around their careers, particularly when attached to beloved franchise characters. Understanding Evans's original journey to becoming Captain America provides interesting context for his current stance. When asked how he got cast in the iconic role, Evans described it as a process filled with uncertainty.
Luck.
They wanted me to come in and read, and I was a little apprehensive. It was a back and forth. It was a little bit of a dance. It was something I was really nervous about doing.
He credits the support of Marvel executives and colleagues for helping him take the leap.
Luckily, there were really good people in my corner who kept nudging me. Kevin Feige and Robert, a lot of great people kind of talked me into it. And it was the best decision of my life.
This initial hesitation, followed by the career-defining success of his tenure as Captain America, may inform his current reluctance to return to the role. Having completed a satisfying character arc and moved on to other projects, Evans may be wary of diminishing the impact of Steve Rogers' farewell by returning for additional appearances. While the MCU door appears closed for now, another potential avenue for Evans' future with Disney lies in the Star Wars franchise. An ex-post from September 2019 shows Evans' interest in joining the galaxy far, far away, as he simply responded "me" to a query about MCU actors in Star Wars. Reports from Giant Freakin' Robot in June 2024, citing insider Daniel Richtman, indicated Disney had informal talks with Evans for an upcoming Star Wars project, likely a theatrical film under Kevin Feige's development. This potential Star Wars connection makes sense given Evans' previous collaboration with Rian Johnson, director of Star Wars Episode VIII, The Last Jedi, on the hit film Knives Out. Earlier reports, like one from Mickey in November 2020, also mentioned talks between Evans and Disney regarding Star Wars, but the lack of updates leaves this possibility in the realm of speculation. In terms of animation work with Disney, Evans' experience with Pixar for Lightyear was both a creative opportunity and a commercial challenge. The film's underperformance at the box office, losing Disney $106 million according to reports, may affect the likelihood of sequels or new Pixar projects involving the actor. While critics praised his performance, there are no indications of sequels or new Pixar projects involving him. When discussing his approach to voicing Buzz Lightyear, Evans revealed his respect for Tim Allen's original performance.
Well, it's nice to have what Tim did, because not only did he do it so well, and we all love him for what his performance was, but the character actually is. I mean, this is the human version of the toys.
He further explained his process.
This is an iconic role, but informed very much in part by what Tim did. Whatever this character is would have to be why Tim is the way he was. So you just kind of take his performance as a blueprint and just move upstream.
Evans also shared insights into the unique challenges of voice acting for animation.
Everyone always says, like, well, what was it like working with the other actors? You don't work with the other actors. You're in a booth by yourself. I didn't even meet half the actors until last night at the premiere. So it's a very isolating thing, and you really end up focusing extremely on the one string you're playing on, which is your voice.
Beyond Disney-specific projects, Evans' current career trajectory includes several non-Disney films. According to the Cinemaholic, as of March 30th, 2025, his upcoming projects include Honey Don't for Apple TV Plus and Red One for Prime Video, suggesting a focus on expanding his presence across different studios and streaming platforms. Evans' contractual status with Disney provides another piece of the puzzle regarding his future with the company. His past MCU contract, detailed in Cinema Blend from 2018, was for 6 films, extended for Avengers Infinity War and Endgame, but expired post-2019. Reports from 2021, like one from We Got This Covered, suggested a new contract for more projects, but these have not led to confirmed roles. Despite the uncertainties surrounding his professional relationship with Disney, Evans maintains a personal connection to the company and its properties. His visit to Disney World in January 2025, reported by Aliers.net, shows his continued affinity for the Disney experience as a fan, even as his future as a Disney actor remains unclear. When discussing his own inspirations and the figures who encouraged his career path, Evans credited his parents and local theater directors.
I mean, I'm very lucky. My parents were always really, really supportive. I had a couple good local theater directors. When I was a kid, you do community theater and kids theater and things like that.
As of May 4th, 2025, Chris Evans' future with Disney remains largely speculative. While he has denied returning as Captain America, the possibility exists given past rumors, but current evidence leans toward no return. Star Wars offers a potential new chapter, with talks reported but no confirmation. Other Disney projects, like Pixar sequels, are not in development for him. His career trajectory, as seen in upcoming non-Disney projects, suggests a focus outside Disney, but his expressed interest in Disney's expansive franchises keep the door open for future collaborations. For fans of Evan's work with Disney, whether as Captain America or Buzz Lightyear, the coming months and years will likely bring clarity regarding his next steps with the entertainment giant. Until then, the actor's firm statements about being happily retired from the MCU and his diversification into non-Disney projects suggest a career in transition, one that may or may not include future collaborations with the house that Mickey built. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed watching this video, click on one of the boxes playing on your screen to watch more similar content.